Hello YouTube, welcome back. I'm getting ready to get started on my next prop. It's going to consist of this flying crank ghost right here. A couple years ago in my cemetery display, I had a mausoleum that had like the brick was broken in the front of it, and you can see inside this structure. And then when I pressed the button, this would come on, so it kind of looked like you were staring at a spirit that was inside of this mausoleum. Well, I've since gotten rid of that mausoleum, and I decided that I kind of want to have that back in my display again for this year, so I'm going to have to build another one. I'm going to show you a real quick picture just to show you what it originally looked like. So you see in the picture, it just kind of had that look of it. You were staring at a spirit inside, like this dilapidated mausoleum. What I plan to do is I'm going to pretty much kind of follow it, kind of like what you saw in the picture, but I'm going to try to change it up a little bit so it's not exactly like the original one was. I'm going to try to put a different spin on it. I don't know if I'm going to be taller, wider, deeper, or maybe do something different with the brick. Maybe I'll do like a block or something like that. I'm not really sure just yet. I'm going to do some planning and figuring out. But I hope you enjoy this video, and let's get started. All right, so this is going to be the basic concept design I'm going to be going with for this particular prop. I'm going to be doing one of those column style ones where you have the roof that overhangs a little bit further, and then you have like nice little columns in the front. Now, your average piece of PVC pipe that you'll get from any of your local hardware stores are generally 10 feet long. And I only want to buy one, so obviously when I cut it in half, I'm going to have two 5-foot pieces. So I'm just going to make sure that obviously from the ground to the roof is going to be at 5 feet, so this way I can utilize just one piece of PVC. The top I have written 12 inches here, but usually as I'm drawing this out on my foam board, a lot of times I'll make changes to that. Sometimes I'll make it lower, sometimes I'll make it taller. It just depends on how it's looking as I'm actually tracing everything out and marking everything up. But my game plan is to go 4 feet wide, 3 feet between the columns, and about 32 inches of the actual area that's going to be the brick. Now, the height of it is going to be determined on as I'm starting to build it, because I don't know exactly how big of a border I want to put on the bottom here, how big of a border I want to put on the top. So this could vary a lot, just depends on what I plan on doing for that portion. The side profile is going to be kind of the same thing. I'm going to go with 4 feet deep. The section where the column is going to be about 16 inches, and the area where the ghost is going to be about 32 inches. So my overall footprint is going to essentially be 4 foot by 4 foot after everything's said and done. And like I said, the height might vary just a little bit. It might be 6 feet, might be a little less, might be a little taller. That's all going to play out once I actually start to build the prop itself. So let's go ahead and get some materials, and let's get started. All right, here's the bulk of the material list for this particular prop. Now, because I'm going to be making quite a bit of overhang, I got to make sure that this thing is strong, and while I'm carrying it, I'm not going to get any kind of flexing like where the columns are going to be. So the base is going to be a plywood base. It's going to make it a little heavier, but I'll be cutting sections of it out, like where the columns are going to be. I'll cut that out and make open that up, and then where the mausoleum is going to be, I'll cut that out so it'd make it easier for me to carry. But I will still have somewhat of a plywood base to give it a lot more structure to it. Then obviously I got some 2x4s. I'll be ripping those through the table saw so I can make more pieces, and those will just be my uprights. The only downside I ran into is this plywood is not a full sheet. So instead of it being 48 inches wide, it's only going to be 42 inches wide. So I'm just going to make a few adjustments to the width of like where the opening is going to be, where you'll see the ghost, and the size of the column pieces and stuff like that. Nothing major, just some slight adjustments and modifications, but it'll still work out. Let's get started. All right, we got the brick traced out. I got the overall shape cut out. Pretty much all I do when I do my brick is I just measure what my opening is going to be, and then divide it so I have nice even, size of bricks here. And then obviously then I'll go up here and then figure out what my center point is, and then just do the same thing up there to create my brick. Now I'll kind of base my brick off the size of my prop, but I try to make sure that they're no bigger than what like a standard brick would be. The only issue I'm going to run into is when I measured the ghost that's going to go in there. As far as the overall width is really close to the overall width of that from hand to hand. So pretty much what's going to end up happening is almost the entire solid brick on each side is going to be gone. Just the half brick is going to go down to a certain point, and then I'll slowly jagger it back till I get to the point that I want. So what I might do is I might go ahead and cut all that out first that I want to cut out, then use my router. So this way it saves me all that extra routering if I don't need to do it. So it's going to be a little snug, but I've already figured out how I'm going to make it work. Unfortunately, since I made the decision to make it smaller and I've already cut the material, I'm not going to start over, but it'll work out in the end. Got the front and back pieces of wood cut. Like I said in previous videos, I usually cut my front and my backs at the same time so I can make sure they're the same size. So when I go to screw everything together, it's as square as possibly can be. Those extra pieces of wood you see right in the center, what that is for is this particular foam right here. When you take the foil off one side and you have it out in the sun, it tends to want to bow, and it bows obviously the direction that there's no foil, because that foil actually adds a little bit of rigidity to it. So all that's going to do is that's going to keep it from bowing. So when I have it sitting in the front yard in the sun, and my block or my brick simulation is not going to look like it's bulging out to the outside. But I also got these pieces glued on. As soon as that caulking dries, I'll be able to start assembling it, and then we'll start to see this prop start to take shape. Made it to this point right here. I'm getting ready to start working on the columns, because I got to build this upper section right here first before I can do like my roof, and things like that. So I just went to the dollar store, just picked up some cheap flower pots. I mean, they're blatantly obvious that they're flower pots, but once it's all together, it's painted, the whole 9 yards. I mean, unless you literally walk up to it and you're studying it, you're not really going to catch that too much. So I think it'll be just fine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that block of foam right here. I got 2 of those. I'm going to cut those to make a transition from there to the pot, so I have a nice little stair step. Do the same thing on the top here. Then I'll measure in between. I'll cut my pipe to length, and I'll put everything in, glue it in, let it dry. Then I'll run my fabric up the sides that I generally do, and then I'll start figuring out how I'm going to do the roof and how much recess I want on that upper section, and then we'll be moving forward from there. Got all the little pieces cut. Okay, I put those 2 down already. I set them back 1 inch, so this way when I do my 48-inch roof, the things will be set back a little bit. And for now, what I did until I get the columns on, I just put a 2x4 right here. Just put 1 screw up here that I'll be able to pull out later to hold that where it needs to be, so I can start doing the rest. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put glue on the back of these, glue them into place. I'm gonna stick a little piece of wood on them, where the pipe is going to be, because I don't want the pipe to slowly stab through it. And then after that, then I'll measure for what the pipe is to go in between, and then I'll take a cutter, cut those holes so they can slide over the pipe, and put everything in place and put some glue on it. And I'll have to let that dry before I go any further. All right, so what I did is before I go ahead and put the poles and everything in, I cut just little round pieces of foam that's going to fit inside here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a big amount of caulking, to essentially caulk this in place. And what that's going to do is that's just going to help make sure that once it's glued there and glued in here, that the pipe ain't going to be able to move back and forth like this. I mean, all it's holding is strength this way. It's not holding like anything this way. So it'll be more than sufficient to keep it from moving once everything's dry. So I'm going to be pumping a bunch of caulking, putting them on these. I'm going to put these on the pipe first, slide them in, and then I'll slide these up into position and then down and then caulk around and all that. Now the waiting game, to wait for it to dry. I'll probably just let it sit overnight so it's fully dry. I went ahead and made sure that the bottom were caulked, the tops were caulked. I went ahead and put a bunch of extra on the top. I tooled it out. These are temporary. As soon as it dries, I'll pull these out. I'll run a bead of caulk around that joint, run around that joint. I'll probably put a bead down here at the bottom just to make sure it's smooth. The next step after that will be to figure out my roof distance. How much do I want returned back in here? And then after I get all that, then I'll go ahead and get the sides covered. I'll get the roof pieces on, and this one will be pretty much about ready for paint and get finished up. All right, the columns and stuff are dry. I got started this morning by getting the sides put on, because I usually do the sides before I do the roof, so I can make sure I get a nice little overlap right here. So when the roof comes down, I get a nice, overlap here, so it kind of creates like that shingle kind of effect. The next is going to be to cut 2 strips out of that to put here for the roof. Once I get those pieces on, then I'm going to make little platforms that are going to go from here up to this line all the way around the entire perimeter of the roof. And I'll cut another piece that looks like this that'll drop down inside. What that's going to do is that's going to give you the illusion that the roof is obviously bigger than it realistically is, and then it's only going to give me a little ledge here. And then when I have that little ledge, then I'm going to put a border on here. When I do my border, that border will fall right about to here, and then I'll put a little lip here. And what that's going to do, that's going to give me like a nice little small detail, and then just a little bit of a recess in, giving the illusion that's a little bit bigger than it obviously really is. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that next. Okay, got the roof in place, and what I was talking about, the little platform pieces, you see I just put these little, essentially just these little supports in here. And what I'll be doing is I'll be taking this piece right here, and I'll be putting a little, lava caulk on top of all these platforms, and this piece will go right down inside here. And when I push it in, that'll give me a platform for it to sit on top of, and it'll give me a nice, perfect, even reveal all the way around the entire area, except for the fact that I purposely made the roof overhang a little bit. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and put this in and go from there. Okay, I got that piece installed. I got it stood up right. See where I got this piece right here, right against those little platforms that I showed I built. And then all I did is I just took, this right here and just set my table saw with a miter on it. and then just rip these. I think it ended up being about 3¼ inches with the with the taper here, and then just beveled it out, ran it out to the bottom, and then I took my saw and just ripped just a straight bevel piece to put on this part right here. So what that did is that gave me just a little bit of a ledge here. Now when you're mapping that stuff out, you got to kind of keep in mind of how much overhang you want on everything. So for this particular one that I worked with, my little platforms ended up being 13.5, and then this right here gave me that 3/4. So they put me right at 14.25, and then I had another 3/4 of an inch, which puts me at about almost 15 inches. And I knew by the time I added another 3/4 right here, it would give me about almost a 1/2 inch reveal right here. Not a whole lot, but I didn't want a whole lot sitting right here. I just wanted just a little ledge right there. So I wanted most of the ledge to be kind of in this section right here. I got the roof all on. I just use roofing nails just to kind of hold it in place with a caulk and dries. And I'll just kind of go over top of this with a little bit of caulking, so this way when I paint it and I throw my texture on there, they kind of blend in and you kind of don't see them after the fact. But next step is going to be to caulk these, hang the ghost in there, check to see how I like the opening, and if everything is all good, then this one's going to be ready for paint. Okay, at first glance, it kind of looks like I might have put it a little too high, but this thing kind of goes downward first. Let me see if I can get this thing to kick on. It's sound kind of activated, but I also will have a button on it during my display. Like I think I'll be having a piece of like a fabric or a window screen that'll be between her and the front, so it kind of damps it down. And obviously there'll be a back piece on the back, making sure that no extra ambient light gets in there. So you'll be looking into something that'll be pretty dark until that actually comes on. So I think this one's ready for paint. I'm gonna paint this one a little different than the way I've been doing all the other ones. I'm gonna try to paint this one kind of the same way I just did that pillar one, where what I did is I just mixed up pretty much just mostly water and just a little bit of black paint in there just to give it a little tinting. I'm just literally just gonna spray it on super heavy and just let it run down and see if I get a different look than what I have been doing for my mausoleum. So see how this turns out. I don't think there's enough black in that. All right, I put a few layers of that way on there with the excessive water. Um, I don't necessarily care for it too much, so I'm just going to go back to pretty much my normal way, where I have it a lot more concentrated and then just mist it how I want it. So I'm just going to go back to my normal method. All right, I got it all painted. Right now it's still pretty wet, from spraying the heavily diluted water on there. And I just painted stuff over top of it, so I would still continue to get, just some runs and stuff like that. But I'm gonna have to let this sit out here for a little bit and dry, and then I'll bring it into the shop. I'll put the ghost in it, and then we will see the final product. Okay, it's pretty much done. I think it came out all right. I think I got a little too much brown. I might feather that out a little bit before it goes into the display. But overall, I think it came out all right. The next step is going to be to start positioning the ghost inside there. Now, the one thing with the ghost is it does have little LEDs on it that are on the casing right there that help light the prop up. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to wait till it gets dark out. I'm going to hang it inside there. And I'm going to check to see how the lighting on it looks, and if I have to add any like extra lighting to it. I just don't know if I really want to add extra lighting, because then it might kind of make it to where you see the prop before you turn it on, which might end up kind of ruining the look of the prop. But I'll have to wait till it gets dark so I can find that out. But that'll be the next step, is to kind of start hanging that inside there, and figuring out how high or how low it needs to sit inside there to look the best. Okay, I'm playing with the lighting still a little bit, but I'm also working on messing with my screening. I have used regular window screen in the past, but right now I'm also trying this landscape fabric, which seems to be a little bit darker. But the bad part is it's a little bit harder to see through. But the reason I have the garage door open, because I want to show a little, I guess like a little Halloween hack that I've been doing for quite a while now. I'm not sure if anybody else has done this or not, but I'm going to show you something real quick. You know how when you buy these particular props right here, and some of them are sound activated, some of them are motion and that kind of stuff, how often do they ever go off when you want them to go off? I mean, you almost have to have someone stand in front of the thing for a couple seconds before the thing goes off. And sometimes it kind of ruins it, because then it either goes off too late, too soon, and that kind of stuff. And it's like, man, I wish there was a way you can control that easier. Well, this is what I do. Every one of them come with that little demo button. All you gotta do is just leave the prop in demo mode, add a little longer wire to it, and then when you want it to go off, you just make it go off. Now I can make it run for 1 cycle, or I can make it run for 2 cycles, just depending on, say, the amount of people that's in the group. Like, say there's no people in the group, so maybe 2 cycles of it going up and down is going to be perfect for that group. And then I can shut it off, so this way the next group coming back doesn't see this thing continuing to run, kind of ruining the surprise of them walking up to this thing. So I don't know, like I said, I'm not sure if anybody else has really done this before. It does make it to where you have to babysit it, but whenever I set up my displays, I usually sit there and run all my props anyways, because I want them to go off when I want them to go off. So this way I get the best, this way the people get the best experience possible, and I get the best reactions out of it. So if anybody else has never thought about this, great little Halloween hack right here. Just remember, you have to babysit it out if you do it this way. But all right, before I show the final lit up prop, I kind of want to show you the difference from using the landscape fabric to using just a piece of window screen, far as being able to see the prop that's inside. So like this one right here is the landscape fabric. And this is just with a regular window screen. Now with this one right here, you can definitely see the prop inside. Now obviously if it's dark out, but if I have any kind of ambient light shining on it, it'll allow you to see that image in there before it actually comes on, so it kind of ruins the surprise. So I think I'm going to go with the landscape fabric for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back on. get all my lighting set up, and show the finish. All right, this is pretty typical for me. A lot of times I might be working on a prop, and I'll get pretty far into it, and then there's just something about it that I don't like, and then I change my mind. And in this case, with the ghost, there's just it doesn't look good. It's not working like I want it to. It doesn't have the look that I'm going for. So I'm going to go ahead and scrap the whole ghost idea, and I'm going to go with a different concept. What I'm thinking about doing is I'm thinking about using one of my extra skeletons and build like a stand for it to stand on, so it's inside there. Make it look like the arms are reaching towards the broken opening, and maybe have like a strobe light on it and then a motion sensor. So this way, as they walk up to it, the strobe light will start going off, and there'll be the skeleton looking like it's like getting ready to reach out towards the kids as they walk past it. I think it would have a much better look, a much better effect to it than just the ghost floating inside there. So I'm going to go ahead and get one of my skeletons, start building something, put it inside there, start doing some test runs, see if I like it, see if that's going to work. If not, I will start thinking of another idea. But hopefully I'll come up with something pretty shortly here so I can get this finished up so I can show you guys the finished product. All right, I'm just going to show the basic mechanics of kind of what I got going on here. I'm going to be using a strobe light to light the skeleton up. It's all going to be ran off of a motion sensor that'll be set up, probably next to one of the tombstones. It's going to be just before the prop, so I can make sure that it comes on every time when I want it to. Then I have one of those little sound boxes that has up to like 20 something sounds, from creaking doors, laughing, all kinds of stuff like that. But as I was kind of messing around with it, I was hoping that the light from the strobe would be enough to activate the motion sensor portion of it. And kind of like I was saying earlier in the video, how often do these things really go off when you want them to go off when they have motion sensors? Very rarely. And it proved me right on this one. The strobe is too rapid of a flash to, make the sensor catch it. So what I'm doing here is, you can see I built this little propeller. It's hooked to a 110 little motor, like a little small, slow rotation motor. And what that's going to do is, hopefully, when it gets dark, I'll have to double check and make sure that while the strobe light's going, that little propeller will block the sensor and block that light enough each time that it's always going to go off. And it's all going to be hooked to one plug. So let me go ahead and plug it in. So at the moment, obviously, with all the shop lights on, it works just fine. But we'll have to see what it does when it gets dark. But you can see. But I just wanted to show the basic mechanics of what I got going on with this. So once it gets dark out and I can shut all the lights out and only have the strobe on, we'll see if the two work with each other. And if so, then I will go ahead and put it inside the prop, and hopefully we can see the finished result. Okay, I got a quick mock-up here so I can do the demonstration. I got the skeleton put inside there, got the strobe light, I got the sound box. I also added an extra low wattage light bulb. The reason for the extra low wattage light bulb is because the strobe light, even with the little propeller thing on there, there wasn't enough duration between the flashes to get it to work. So I had to slow the strobe way down, and then it just kind of killed the prop. So I added that extra bulb in there just to guarantee that that's gonna activate every time, so I keep the strobe running nice and fast. You can see I got my tombstone down here. I have a little light on the back side of there. I'll get a little closer and show that to you. And then on the ground there, you see I have my motion sensor. I have a nice long cord on there, so I can set it up to wherever I need to set it to make sure that this comes on just as they're getting close to it, but not too soon. So you can see I got the, it's just a little LED strip that I picked up. I just took a piece of PVC pipe, ripped it in half, and just used some chrome decal tape just so it amplifies it a little more. That's all I did for the light, and actually puts off quite a bit of light. And you see the skeleton inside there. Now I'm going to go ahead and shut the lights off so y'all can see what it's going to look like in the dark. Okay, we got the light shut off in the shop. I moved the green light a little bit closer to it so you can at least see the details of the prop a little bit better. And I moved the motion sensor a little bit closer to me. So for my demonstration, I want to make sure it kicks on at the right time. My game plan is when I actually set this up in my display, I want to make sure that it actually comes on somewhere between 4 to 6 feet before the people get actually to the prop. And the reason why I'm figuring that number is gonna be a good number is because everybody walks at different paces when they walk through attractions. Whether some people go a little slower and look at details, some people walk a little bit faster. When you make an animated prop, despite if it's a super simplified animated prop or a very complex animated prop, you want everybody to experience that prop. That's the reason why you spent the time to make a prop of that nature. So you want everybody to see it. So I want to make sure it comes on at the right time. So hopefully for this demonstration, it kicks on like I wanted to, and obviously it'll kick on before I get to it. So I'm going to go ahead and walk up to it so y'all are going to see what they're going to see when it's actually set up. Now you see right now in the camera that it's not, you don't see a whole lot of detail, but to the naked eye, you definitely can, you see the details much better to the naked eye. Now, obviously, y'all know I made that change from the ghost to the skeleton, and I felt that decision needed to be done. And the reason why is, as cool as the ghost prop was, it had a huge flaw in it, and that was the lighting of it. It had those little blue LEDs in it. Unfortunately, those LEDs are fixed into the top and only shine directly straight down, so they don't light the prop up fully. And what I mean by that is it doesn't light up the face or the hands, so you don't see the details of that. The only way you'd see those details is to have some form of extra lighting that's going to give you that. So I'd have two options. One, I could put a light inside the prop that stays on all the time, but then it kind of kills it. It makes it to where as you walk up to it, you're going to see the ghost inside there, so you're not looking into this potentially possibly empty mausoleum until something comes on. It kind of ruins it. Or I turn the light on at the same time that I turn the prop on. Now I have two buttons to tend to. I have the demo button to activate the prop, then I have another button to turn on the light. Then I got to turn them both off. So that, to me, that just seems like it's complicating it. It's more to tend to. It's more to remember to do on top of all the other props that I'm working on. So I felt simplifying it by literally just putting a skeleton in there, put a strobe light on it, put a little box that makes noise, and put it on a motion sensor. So this way it's completely self-sufficient, self-running. It'll come on as people walk up to it. It'll shut off after people walk past it. It doesn't have to be controlled. It doesn't have to be maintained. It doesn't have to be babysat. So I felt simplifying it was the best course of action for this. So leave me a comment. Tell me if you think the decision to make that to what I did now was a good decision or not. I'd like to hear from you. But I'm going to go ahead and walk up a little closer so y'all can see a little bit more detail of it. See, as you get a little closer, you can definitely see a lot more detail of the skeleton in there. Then you got obviously the detail of the actual prop itself. Like I said, this light will be a little bit further back, so you won't see that skeleton like you can now. But if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.